A young woman forced into marriage ran through the wilderness for hours, her feet bleeding through her boots, her lungs burning with every breath she took. But collapsing at a stranger's doorstep wasn't the end of her nightmare. It was the beginning of something no one saw coming, because the 6 boys who found her broken in the pines and the widower with flour on his hands were about to teach her something she'd forgotten, that sometimes the family you choose is the one that saves you. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and kindly give this video a like. Her name was Eleanor, but no one had called her that in so long she'd almost forgotten the sound of it. She woke that morning to rough hands on her shoulder and her father's voice saying numbers not her name, counting coins in the dark like he was tallying livestock. "He's here," her father said. "Get dressed. Don't shame me." She knew who he meant. Cyrus Webb, a man with cold eyes who'd already buried 2 wives in rocky ground and needed a third, not for softness but for work, for the cooking and washing and labor that kept a man's land from swallowing him whole. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, she belonged to him. Simple as that. Legal as a bill of sale. 20 pieces of silver. That's what she was worth. Cyrus pulled up in his wagon and didn't greet her, didn't speak to her, just counted out the silver into her father's palm, each coin landing with a sound Eleanor would remember for the rest of her life. "Get in," Cyrus said, his voice flat as the horizon, empty of anything that resembled kindness. She climbed into the wagon because what else could she do, and she didn't turn around, didn't give her father the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The wagon lurched forward and Eleanor watched her childhood disappear behind her, until it was nothing. "You'll work hard," Cyrus said finally. "My last wife got lazy, got to thinking she was owed something more than a roof and food. I won't tolerate that, you understand?" Eleanor nodded because speaking seemed impossible. "You won't complain and you won't cry and you won't make me regret paying good money for you." Something inside Eleanor began to crack. Cyrus Webb's land was exactly as brutal as she'd imagined. Hard-packed earth and a house that looked like it was held together by anger. When they arrived, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her through the door, his fingers digging into her skin hard enough to bruise. "Kitchen's through there. I want supper by sundown. There's a chicken needs killing, and if you burn anything, I'll know you're as useless as you look." Eleanor found the chicken and killed it badly with shaking hands, the blood on her palms feeling like prophecy. She cooked and cleaned, and all the while she was calculating, measuring the distance to the door, to anywhere that wasn't here. Cyrus ate without speaking, and when he finished, he said, "You'll sleep in the back room. Tonight you'll sleep alone. Tomorrow we'll see if you're worth keeping." He said it like a threat, and Eleanor's hands clenched under the table so hard her nails drew blood from her palms. She waited in the back room and listened to him drink himself to sleep, heavy footsteps giving way to wet snoring, and Eleanor made her decision. She opened the back window inch by careful inch and climbed through and started running. Not toward anything, just away from the house that smelled like death and the man who'd bought her like livestock. She ran through the darkness until her lungs burned and her legs shook and her feet left bloody prints in the dust. She ran until she couldn't tell if the pounding was her heart or his footsteps behind her. Behind her in the distance, she heard it, a shout, a man's voice, angry and getting closer. He'd woken up. He was coming. Eleanor pushed harder, but her body was failing and the sky was getting lighter, which meant he could see her, which meant everything. The trees were thicker now, and the ground was soft with needles, and Eleanor's foot caught on a root, and she went down hard. She tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't. She tried to crawl, but everything hurt, and the darkness at the edges of her vision was closing in. "Hello, lady," a voice said from above her. "Jimmy, go get Pa. Quick now." Eleanor saw a boy, maybe 12, staring down at her with wide eyes. "You okay, miss?" he asked, his voice gentle in a way she'd forgotten voices could be. The last thing she heard was the boy yelling, "Pa, Pa, there's a lady and she's bleeding," and then nothing. Eleanor woke to sunlight on her face and the smell of bread baking, and for a confused moment she thought she was home. Then pain shot through her knee, and it all came back. She opened her eyes and found herself in a clean room, with a worn quilt tucked around her. Footsteps approached, and a man appeared in the doorway, tall with silver threading through his dark hair, and flour dusted across his shirt. "You're awake," he said, his voice careful, like he was talking to something wounded. "That's good. My boys found you in the pines just after dawn. You were pretty torn up." He brought her water and helped her sit up, supporting her back with one hand while she drank. "Where am I?" "My homestead, about 5 miles west of the Webb property." 5 miles. She'd run 5 miles through the night. "He'll come looking," Eleanor said, her voice cracking with fear. "He'll find me here and he'll—" "No one's taking you anywhere you don't want to go." "I'm Samuel Hartley. Those voices you heard, that's my boys. 6 of them." "I can't stay," Eleanor said, trying to push the quilt away. "I can't put you in danger. He paid for me. There's papers. Your husband came through here about 2 hours ago," Samuel said quietly. "Said his new wife had run off. I told him I hadn't seen any women on my property, which was true at the time. He didn't believe me, but he couldn't search the place, with 6 boys staring at him, and me standing in the door with a rifle in plain sight." "He'll come back," Eleanor whispered. "Probably," Samuel agreed. "But here's the thing, Eleanor. Can I call you Eleanor?" She nodded. "I've been a widower for 2 years now. My Sarah died of fever, and she left me with 6 boys who need raising and a homestead that needs tending, and honestly, I'm doing a terrible job of both." Samuel leaned forward, his eyes serious. "I need help. We need help. But not the kind Cyrus Webb needs. A partner, family, someone who chooses to be here because they want to be, not because they're trapped." "I don't understand," Eleanor said. "I'm saying you could stay if you wanted. Not as my wife, not yet, maybe not ever if you don't want, but as part of this household. And you need a place where a man with papers and anger can't reach you." "What do you want from me?" she asked. Samuel smiled, sad and honest. "To see you choose something for yourself, to watch you heal, to maybe have dinners that don't taste like charcoal." From somewhere in the house a crash sounded and Samuel closed his eyes. That's probably the flour barrel again. Despite everything, Eleanor felt her mouth twitch toward a smile. The boys appeared one by one through the afternoon, until Samuel said, "Come in and introduce yourselves properly." They filed in biggest to smallest. Thomas at 15 trying to look serious, William at 13 who'd found her, James at 11 with gap teeth, Henry at 8 clutching a wooden horse, Robert at 6 hiding behind Thomas, and Benjamin, barely 4, who walked straight up to her bed and announced, "You smell like outside." "Benjamin," Samuel said, pained. "It's okay," Eleanor said. "I probably do." "Can you make biscuits?" James asked. "Papa's biscuits are all hard, like rocks." "I can make biscuits," Eleanor said, "and bread, and stew, and pie if you have apples." 6 pairs of eyes widened like she'd promised them the moon. On the 3rd day, she got up and walked to the kitchen and found it exactly as disastrous as she'd imagined. Flour everywhere, dishes piled high, mysterious stains on every surface. Eleanor rolled up her sleeves. By evening, the kitchen was transformed and she made biscuits that were soft, and bread that didn't taste like char, and a stew that made Benjamin announce, "Papa, I think I love her," with such pure sincerity that even Thomas smiled. That night, after the boys were asleep, Samuel explained the situation plainly. "Cyrus will keep looking. Legally, the law's on his side. If he finds you here, he could force you back." "Then I should go," Eleanor said, even though the thought made her chest tight. "You could," Samuel agreed, Or you could stay, and we could make it legal. Marry me. Real marriage. Legal marriage. The kind that trumps whatever arrangement your father made. You'd be Eleanor Hartley, not Eleanor Webb." "You don't even know me," Eleanor whispered. "I know you ran through the wilderness all night to escape a bad situation. I know you got up from a sickbed to clean my kitchen. I know my boys look at you like you hung the stars." Samuel leaned closer. "I'm not asking you to love me, Eleanor. I'm asking you to let me protect you. We'll figure out the rest as we go. And if I can never give you children of your own—" "I have 6 children," Samuel said gently. "I don't need more. I need someone who sees them as people worth raising." Eleanor looked at this man with flour on his hands and honesty in his eyes, and she thought about 6 boys who needed someone and a kitchen she'd already started to make her own. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." They married on a Sunday morning, with 6 boys as witnesses, and Eleanor wore a dress that had belonged to Sarah, and when Samuel took her hand to say his vows, his palm was steady where hers shook. The words were old, but the way Samuel said them made them sound like a promise that meant something. When it was Eleanor's turn, her voice came out stronger than she expected, and she meant every word. They were walking back to the wagon when Cyrus Webb appeared. He rode up fast and dismounted before the animal fully stopped, his face twisted with rage. "There you are," he snarled, striding toward Eleanor. "You think you can run from me? You think you can hide and I won't find you?" Samuel stepped between them, calm but immovable. "Eleanor is my wife now, Webb. Legally married. You have no claim on her." "Like hell I don't," Cyrus spat. "I paid good money for her. Her father and I have a contract." "She belongs to herself," Samuel said quietly, "and she's chosen. The law recognizes her marriage to me." Cyrus's hand went to the knife at his belt, but then Thomas stepped forward and William and James, until all 6 boys were standing in a line behind their father, with rocks in their hands, and together they looked like a wall that couldn't be moved. "She's our ma now," Thomas said, his voice breaking just slightly. "You can't have her." Cyrus's face flickered with calculation, weighing the cost of 6 witnesses and a legal marriage against 1 woman. He spat in the dust. "You're welcome to her. She's defective anyway. Barren as salt flats. You'll figure that out soon enough." He mounted and rode off without looking back, and Eleanor stood there with her new family around her and felt something break inside her that had needed breaking for a long time. The first weeks were strange and careful, but Samuel kept his word about not pushing, not demanding anything she wasn't ready to give. The boys were easier. Eleanor learned their rhythms and taught them to cook and sew and clean up after themselves, and in return they taught her how to laugh again. She taught them to read better and tended the garden, and slowly the homestead started to look different under her care. Flowers by the door, curtains in the windows, a place that felt like home. Months passed, spring turning to summer, and Eleanor and Samuel developed a partnership that was practical and honest. They worked together, made decisions together, sat together in the evenings while the boys created chaos around them. Sometimes she caught him looking at her with something warmer than partnership in his eyes, and sometimes she looked back and let him see that maybe eventually she could feel that way too. One evening in late summer, Samuel found her in the garden picking tomatoes by moonlight. "I've been thinking," he said. "I gave you the main bedroom because you needed space. But Eleanor, it's a big bed, and winter's coming. I'd like to share a bed with my wife, just sleeping, just warmth, unless and until you want otherwise." "Just sleeping?" Eleanor asked. "Just sleeping until you say different." "Okay," Eleanor said. "Tonight then." That night they lay awkwardly on opposite sides until Eleanor laughed and said, "This is stupid, we're adults." She turned toward him and guided his arm around her shoulders, settling against his chest. "This works." "Yeah," Samuel said softly, "this works. Years passed, measured in harvests and birthdays and small triumphs. Eleanor grew to love Samuel in the quiet way of people who build a life together, one day at a time. And when her monthly courses kept coming and the months turned into years with no pregnancy, Samuel never once suggested she was lacking. "I have 6 sons," he said. "I don't need more children. I need you, just you." But in the 3rd year of their marriage, her courses stopped. She didn't tell anyone at first, afraid to hope, but her body changed, and finally she let herself believe. She told Samuel on a Sunday morning, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach, "There's someone in there." Samuel's eyes filled with tears. "A miracle. You're a miracle." "I thought I couldn't," Eleanor whispered. "They were wrong," Samuel said, "about everything, about you." In January, during a snowstorm, Eleanor labored in the big bedroom with Samuel holding her hand, and finally, a baby's cry cut through the storm. A girl. They named her Sarah after the woman who'd come before, and 2 years later, another girl named Grace. Eleanor nursed her daughters and watched her sons grow into men, and felt something settle deep in her bones, a sense of rightness, of belonging, of having found the place she was always meant to be. When Benjamin was 16, he appeared one morning with a piece of oak he'd been carving for weeks. "For the gate," Benjamin said, holding it up. "So people know." Eleanor read the words carved into the wood. "The breaking light, Hartley Homestead, all welcome." "Breaking light?" Samuel asked. "It's what Ma called the dawn," Benjamin said. "That first morning when we found her. The light that almost destroyed her, but didn't. The light that showed her where to run to, not just away from." Eleanor's throat went tight. "It's perfect." They hung it that afternoon, all of them together, and the sign swung gently in the breeze, catching the light. The years passed. Thomas married and started his own family. William built a cabin on the property. James became a teacher. Henry married a widow with children. Robert traveled and sent letters from distant places. Benjamin took over the woodworking shop in town. Sarah grew up fierce and announced at 12 she was going to be a doctor. Grace was quieter, content to help in the garden and listen to stories of how her mama had run through the wilderness and found family waiting. Samuel's hair went fully silver and Eleanor's hands grew crooked with age, and the homestead became known throughout the territory as a place where the door was always open. People started calling Eleanor Mama Hartley, even if they weren't her children, because that's what she was, a mother to anyone who needed one. And whenever someone new arrived looking lost or scared, Eleanor would feed them and tell them her story, about the dawn she was sold, the night she ran, the sunset when 6 boys found her, and the widower who asked instead of taking. Samuel got sick. "I ran away," winter of Eleanor's 53rd but I also year, ran and she nursed him through it. Sometimes you have to break before you can become whole. He survived, but was weaker after, and one evening by the fire he asked, "No regrets?" "Not a single one," Eleanor said, settling into his lap. "You saved my life, Samuel Hartley." "Pretty sure it was the other way around," Samuel said, his arms around her still strong enough to hold her. "You showed us how to live again." 50 years after Benjamin hung the sign, long after Eleanor and Samuel were buried side by side on the hill, a young woman appeared at the gate just after dawn. She was running from something. You could see it in how she kept looking over her shoulder, in the fear in her eyes and the bruises on her wrists. Grace was the one who found her. Grace, who was 65 now and still kept the homestead alive the way her mother had taught her. "You look like you could use some breakfast," Grace said, the same words her father had said all those years ago. The young woman nodded, crying too hard to speak, and Grace took her hand and led her inside where the kitchen was warm and smelled like bread baking. While the woman ate, Grace told her the story, about a girl who was sold at dawn and ran until sunset, about 6 boys and a widower with flour on his hands, about a marriage that started as protection and became love, about the breaking light. She was my mother, Grace said, and she taught me that no one owns you except yourself, that you can run from the bad things and toward the good things, even when you don't know what they are yet.
That's beautiful, she said softly. It was the name my mother gave to the dawn that changed her life, Grace said. The morning she found us. The light that broke through her darkness and showed her a different way forward. She put her arm around the young woman's shoulders. And now you're here at your own breaking light. Let's see what it shows you. They walked toward the house together, and behind them the sign swung gently in the morning breeze, catching the light the way it had for 50 years. A beacon for the lost, a promise for the running, a reminder that sometimes the family you need is waiting just beyond the darkness. In that moment when the night finally breaks and the light comes streaming through. Because that's the thing about breaking light. It doesn't just illuminate what's ahead, it shows you what you've survived. Eleanor ran until she couldn't run anymore. And then she found a place where she didn't have to, where running away became standing still, became building something that would outlast her, where being bought became being chosen, where breaking became becoming. The breaking light isn't the end of darkness. It's the promise that dawn always comes, no matter how long the night. And sometimes the people waiting in that dawn will have flour on their hands and love in their eyes and room at their table for one more. Sometimes the family you need is the one you find at sunrise. That's where it starts, in the breaking light.